In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is your host, Grizzlies writer Drew Hill, joined as always by columnist Chris Herrington. Back today is Tuesday. The season gets underway today in the NBA. The Grizzlies season will get started tomorrow down at FedEx Forum against the New Orleans Pelicans. So this is the annual Memphis Grizzlies preview pod. We already did the NBA predictions pod. And we're back in person. We have Chris here in Memphis. What a pleasure.
I'm back, people.
I know. How's it been?
In the now palatial offices of the Daily Memphian.
You came back at really good timing because you got some good weather, you know?
Yeah.
Versus, I feel like it's already very cold in Minnesota, so...
I haven't looked at the temps. It was rainy the last week when I was coming down, which was a good, I'm not regretting leaving because it's been rainy. Otherwise, I'm a big fan of fall. I'm a fan of hoodie weather.
Yeah.
Cozy season. I'm all about it. And I wouldn't say it feels quite fall-like here yet, but it's not too bad. It's been okay.
I just had a conversation at practice. I look forward to the day where I get to, when you come to the office, you try to wear pants. You try to be somewhat put in.
You try to wear pants. That's one of the rules here.
As opposed to no pants.
Right.
No, as opposed to shorts, obviously.
Pants-free Fridays.
I look forward to the day that I can put on pants and it feels like it makes sense versus it's 95 degrees outside and I'm wearing pants just for no reason instead of shorts. And today was one of those days. I looked at the forecast. I was like, yes, it is. It's a good day to wear pants. But no, I mean, it's good. It's good to have you back, Chris. It's good to have you in Memphis. It is a sign of what is to come for the Memphis Grizzlies. We have 3 home games to start off the season. It's going to be a very busy weekend. We have a lot of news to get through, unfortunately.
For better or worse, there is news, yeah.
There just continues to be news with the Memphis Grizzlies. From the last time we recorded, the Grizzlies did win a preseason game, which was good. It was actually decent basketball to watch, too. That's the difference between launching a bunch of threes and not making any versus launching a bunch of threes and making almost 40% of them.
Yeah.
So that was the positive. There's since been quite a bit of negatives. Injuries are just sort of piling up already. That does not only apply to the Grizzlies. It applies to lots of teams across the NBA, but especially the Grizzlies right now. So let's play injury roulette. Which player do we want to go for first here in terms of the long-term injury sort of status?
Oh, we could take them in reverse order of how they popped up, I guess. I mean,
okay.
It's hard to separate them because they're concentrated at positions, right? And so the Scottie Pippen Jr. injury would be a bummer by itself. And the Ty Jerome injury would be a bummer by itself. It's putting the two together that's the problem. Much like earlier in the summer, the Brandon Clark-Zach Edey combo, right? It's that combo that is, that is, I think, most distressing for the team.
Yeah, well, it's a combination of not just 2 guys, but 3 when you consider Edey, and really 4 once you get down the line to Brandon Clark.
Right.
So not good. With Jerome, immediately, it was unclear at first during the game if it was an ankle or if it was a calf.
Right.
And I think you were probably hoping that it was an ankle, given the history of calf problems in the NBA and how those have kind of been attached to Achilles tears.
The calf problem can be a precursor, which is one of the reasons teams are so conservative with it. Santi Aldama had a calf strain late in the regular season, and they were very careful with that. But careful in a way that it did not end up becoming more of a thing, and he was good to go in the playoffs. So that's the kind of thing that could lead to something worse, and we've seen that before with other players.
Not only that, but Jerome also dealt with a calf very briefly last year. Same one in February. He only missed 1 game for the Cavs, but not calf and calves. Right. Very confusing. But But no, not good news. And the Grizzlies have come out and said he will be reevaluated in 4 weeks. He's not going to be back on the court in 4 weeks. I feel very confident in saying that. They're going to obviously be very careful. You have to pay attention to the language that the Grizzlies use in these sort of news releases. But generally speaking, a major bummer, and a major bummer for me, who I think I was one of the people who was really high on Ty Jerome and thought he was going to have a really awesome year.
Let's play amateur doctor and guess order of return on these 4 injuries. Can we agree? We're going to assume that Scottie Pippen will be the last to return, correct?
Yes.
Are we agreed that Zach Edey is likely to be the first to return or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Assuming that's how you feel.
I think it is. I feel like the Brandon Clark thing is the least certain situation.
Yeah, that one's the most in the air, it feels like. Edey was at practice today. He was shooting hook shots stationary, not really moving, but just shooting hook shots. Nothing we hadn't already seen. I think he was doing that at training camp too. But worth noting, he is at practice. Ty Jerome was working on the anti-gravity treadmill at practice the other day, just walking, not running. And again, that's not something that you mess with. I think it's going to be a decent amount of time before we see him back on the court. They can say 4 weeks until he's reevaluated. It could be another 4 weeks after that before he's back on the basketball court. We don't know. So I would probably, I think you've nailed down the order. I would probably go Edey, Clark, Jerome, Pippen.
I think you tell me whether this is reasonable, optimistic, or pessimistic. Edey by Thanksgiving, Clark and Jerome by Christmas, Scottie Pippen Jr. by trade deadline.
That's realistic.
Yeah. Trade deadline is more than 3 months. So that would be closer to 4, really. 3.5 months.
Edey and Thanksgiving, I feel like, is going to be that one to me is, that's the hope, right? But that's not promised.
This is a 300-pound guy who had reconstructive ankle surgery. It's hard to be certain about anything with something like that.
That one, yeah. With Jerome, if you give him, we don't know how bad the strain is on his calf, but I'd rather them be safe than sorry on a guy that they just signed for 3 years, right, at the room minimum. So
2 years with a player option. But yeah.
Right. The last thing you want is that guy out another season because you pushed it.
Right.
So, I think that you end up careful, and on the careful side of all of those players. Now, how do you think that this impacts the vibe going into the season? Where is Chris? What is Chris Herrington's mind thinking about the day before opening night in terms of the Grizzlies? Are we super bummed that this is the situation? Are we just excited for hoops? Where do you go?
Oh, I think it definitely takes some air out of the balloon just because, again, those double injuries to two positions, point guard and center, really zaps a lot. Not only does it take talent out of the lineup, it limits the flexibility in terms of lineups and the rotations, and it makes the team much more susceptible to additional injury. You never assume that you just won't have any other injuries. These are long-term situations. What are the odds that everyone else on the roster stays completely healthy for a month and 2 months and 3 months while these injuries are happening? And so if you get some other injury anywhere in those positional groups, I don't know what you're doing. You talk about point guard, Ja Morant, missed 33 games last season. What if he misses 2 games and then the next 3 weeks, which he might do, right? Coming off this ankle thing, how are they getting through 48 minutes? You're going to play a 48-minute point guard rotation of Javon Small and Cam Spencer?
Javon Small, baby.
Point Jitty is what we're going to get to at some point with some of this stuff. So I think it's a problem. I do think, and maybe we can skip ahead some of the stuff we talked about because I think we tie this into expectations, right? The thing about it is, though, the expectation for the Grizzlies this season was almost universally, that includes both of us when we did a pod a couple weeks ago before the Jerome, at least we knew about, before the Jerome injury, before we knew the severity of the Pippen. the universal expectation is play-in range. By almost everybody has the Grizzlies in the play-in range. There are probably more people out there who predicted them to be below the play-in line than above it, even before these injuries. So I think the play-in range has been the universal expectation. And even though these injuries, to me, should reasonably lower expectation, I don't know that they lower expectation out of the range. They may just lower expectation within that range. Even with these injuries, I don't think being in the top 10 of a 15-team West is too much to shoot for, like, at all. I think the team should be focused on trying to be more than that, because players always think you can accomplish more than they actually can. But from the outside perspective, I don't look at this team and say, well, I guess, they got no chance to be in the postseason. 10 teams in the West go to the postseason now. There's no reason they can't be one of them, even with these injuries.
Yeah, I think there's a few things here that I am thinking about now as the season sort of comes into focus. Just to go back before we got onto the expectations thing, just as it relates to the players themselves that are hurt, it's a little disappointing.
Oh, yeah.
Because one, Ty Jerome, and he talked about it at Media Day, was like, I feel like I've always been this level of player, but I've had these injuries over the course of my career. While you want to take him at his word for that, you do wonder, like, this was a season where he was coming off of real momentum.
Yep.
And it felt like, this was an opportunity for him to sort of stamp what he accomplished last year and say, this is real. This is the type of player I am. I'm just a 6 man of the year type of guy. Like, I'm in that conversation type of guy going forward. And now he's going to be coming off of a calf. Is he going to be that level of player when he comes back for the Grizzlies? And to what extent does this sort of also solidify this is a guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries, and wait a minute, maybe this is another player that isn't quite as dependable, when it comes to being in the lineup night in and night out.
No, this is a player who has an injury history, and the Grizzlies signed him to what everyone thought was, that was a good contract. And so the risk was low.
There was virtually no risk.
Yeah. So the risk was low. And so, I don't know what the future holds other than the next month, which will be him not playing basketball. The injury has happened in mid-October before games start being played. It's an 82-game season. And so I don't want to take this injury and sort of conclude already what Ty Jerome is going to be in the second half of a full season and what that will mean for the Grizzlies or his career. He may be awesome by February. Yep. I don't know.
And then with Scotty, that's disappointing.
That's a real bummer for him, because he really had, even though the Grizzlies got swept, he came out of that playoff series with real momentum as an NBA player.
And looking good too early on in the preseason. And so much of his game is just like pure speed and just disruptiveness.
Yeah.
And then now you're having a major operation on your foot, And Desmond Bane, Desmond Bane had a very similar thing.
I don't know whether it's identical, but it was the same.
Took him a little bit to get back too once he did.
Well, no, because, here's the Bane thing. Bane played with the injury. He played hurt, basically, and had missed some time and was not himself. And then when the season ended, he had the surgery. He had surgery in May 2023. And then he was fine the start of the next season, but that's 5 months away, right? It was a summer thing. He ended up missing time later that same season with a different injury, like an ankle or whatever. But the toe thing he played with, remember he had the whole thing where he changed shoes in the middle of the season because of it? So Bane played hurt with the injury, but he didn't play hurt throughout an entire season. I'm not trying to suggest Scottie Pippen should be playing hurt. He's right to get the surgery. But Bane had that surgery and he was fine the next season. We can't know how quickly he would have been okay, because it happened during the off season.
That's right. But obviously, just individually, you take them one by one.
Yeah.
Both pretty disappointing, I think, just in terms of timing on both guys. And then also, I think you're right. Like, when you look at this season overall, it was pretty clear that I don't think trading away Desmond Bane in the offseason to acquire draft assets necessarily signals that the Grizzlies thought that they were going to go win a championship this season. And none of these injuries changed that, right? That was the injuries shouldn't change their big picture look at what they need to do moving forward. But it's disappointing because you would hope that they would have gotten some clarity in terms of that. And maybe they will. Maybe they'll still get it later on in the season, but you're not going to get it, at least not until December, and that's a little disappointing because I think everybody was just kind of looking forward to how this iteration of the team and this new thing around John Jaron was going to look. And it sometimes it just sucks to have to be patient. And it feels like that's the position that everyone's now in.
Yeah. To me, the question for this season now, if you begin by taking it at face value, this is a team, they did a step back to step forward trade with Desmond Bain, but coming out of that trade going into the season, they still wanted to win as much as they could with what they had while evaluating and what have you. That can change as circumstances change. But if you still take that at face value, and I think that should still be what they want, to me, the story of the season until that changes is not how good are you in the first month, but can you be good enough in the first half of the season to give yourself a shot at the end of the season? To me, and I wrote about this today, to me, the season is very much about John Morant and Jaren Jackson. And can those two guys step up, help keep the team afloat to buy them time to potentially get healthy and have the team coalesce around them by the end of the season? And can that happen in a way where you get to, you make it into the play-in? Let's just assume they're not going to be better than that, right? Maybe they will, but probably not. Can you get into the play-in with a team that, when it takes the floor, is better than its record? Because that record was built on a bunch of injuries in the first half of the season. And the team that's played February, March, April basketball is not the same team. Can you build to be a better team over the course of 82, which would be the opposite from last season, where they started out great and they fell apart down the stretch? To me, the goal of this season needs to be the opposite. Let's build over the course of the season and finish strong instead of falling apart late.
Yeah. It feels like if I'm looking at this sort of as a tree right now as I'm trying to figure out the direction to take this podcast. The tree trunk is the situation, all of the injuries, the injury report. Then there's the branches of like, what does this mean individually for Ty Jerome? What does this mean for Scottie Pippen Jr.? But then there's also like, what can come of this? Who's going to play?
Let's go with that. Who's going to play?
Like,
we've been talking about big picture for the players and the team. Let's pull back. There's a game tomorrow night as we talk now. Like, what's the rotation? Who's playing?
Let's start with the starting five.
Yep.
Okay. Ja, KCP, Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson, Jock Landale.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that didn't change. Other than the Edey injury, is like the starting lineup they're going to carry an open night seems to be the starting lineup we thought from day one of training camp they were going to go with. So that at least looks to be intact.
Javon Small's going to play because they don't have other guard options.
He sure is.
Cedric Howard's going to play because they gotta. They might as well. And you're trying to get a guy acclimated anyway. I think
agree.
he was probably going to play no matter what the injuries.
I think he's getting thrown into the deep end. I agree.
Yes.
Well, you're missing an obvious one here. The guy you just gave $18 million to this season is going to play. That's going to play a lot. A certain 7-foot Spaniard who had a busy summer.
Santi.
Yeah.
So your front court is Santi, Jock Landale, Jaren, and then take your pick beyond that.
Well, this is the question. So we got 8. That's 8 right there. The starting 5: Javon Small, Cedric Howard, Santi Aldama. The question is how many more, and then who? And that's where I think the decision comes from Isolo.
You know what? And credit to you who asked a question at practice the other day about whether or not the injury situation is going to change the way that he thinks.
The answer was interesting but confusing, I thought.
Yeah, interesting but confusing. But essentially, this idea that they wanted to play more players at a higher intensity was something that was brought up over and over and over again, was clearly something that he wanted to try to do.
Right.
And is now clearly something that's going to be really hard to do. And so he basically has already acknowledged that probably is not going to be the plan anymore. I wonder if they just cut it to 9.
I wonder about that too, because if you're talking about like playing 12 or whatever, that's one thing if you have your full roster. It's another thing if that means you're playing like 3 two-way guys, 2 rookies, and GG, and it doesn't look as good when you're playing the 50th, 60th, 17th, 18th guys on the roster in a 12-man rotation. But at the same time, they do have Ja, who didn't play in the preseason, who I don't think they're going to want to play 35 minutes. They have Jaron, who, came back and played 2 games, but coming off the toe thing, I don't think they're going to play him 35 minutes. So I think, and then the other question is the pace, right? And so if you want to shrink the rotation down, can you play at the same pace if you don't want to, you're not going to play Ja Morant. You may not play him 35 minutes anyway, but you're not going to play him 35 minutes at like the fastest pace in the league coming off of an ankle injury, right?
Yeah. Vince was still not practicing, so I don't
That's
think
the other
he's
one we
playing.
haven't talked about.
We didn't talk about that injury.
He characterized, there's not been an official designation on him at all.
No.
It'll be on the injury report for the game opening night, but
which
Isolo,
is coming out here, by the way, in like 3
by the time you listen to this, it will have been out. But what Isolo said at practice on Monday was that it was a heel. I think he called it heel soreness. Is that what he said? He said heel. Now, his injury last year was ankle, but ankle and heel are connected. It hasn't been specified that we're talking about the same foot, but I'm 99.9% certain we're talking about the same foot.
Okay, so we named 8.
Yeah. I think Jenny's going to play.
We named, probably, but we named 2 point guards, Ja and Javon Small.
Right.
Is Cam Spencer going to play out of necessity, or are we just going to go no point guard for a few minutes over the course of a game?
Well, you don't have to go no point guard.
Space them at all times.
If you toggle, if you just play Javon Small as a pure backup, you get 48 minutes of point guard play easy there. But you may want Cam anyway for shooting and ball handling, because you don't have another ball handler, even much less whether you call him a point guard or not. There's no other ball handler coming off the bench if you're not playing Cam Spencer.
Well, then that gets you to 9, and I think there's a possibility. I'm not saying they will, but there's a possibility they only go to 9. But they'll probably go beyond that because we've only named 3 guys in the front court, and you're going to have to play more than them.
And we haven't even. Are you throwing Jitty in there?
Yeah, we haven't named John Conchar yet. Yeah,
or Gigi Jackson. And so there are decisions to be made. We're talking about John Conchar, Gigi Jackson.
Well, let's just ask it this way. Let me ask you: are Omax or PJ Hall playing real minutes tomorrow night?
I think it's interesting to me because I feel like they're a little, just between the lines vibe I get is a little more interest in Omax Prosper than PJ Hall. But I think they want to have a center on the floor, and PJ Hall is more of a center.
The whole thing is all predicated around 5 and 1.
I know.
Like center and point guard. And
so
I don't know how you're going to play games in the style he wants to play without playing.
I think PJ Hall is going to play until, and this is another topic we should get into, until there's an addition to the roster who plays that position.
Yeah.
So now you get into the question of Jitty, Gigi, Omax.
I don't think Gigi's going to play.
It's going to be interesting because I feel like you're playing so many young players already, and you have such weak rebounding already. I think you got to get Conchar on the floor. But just because, he can soak up minutes, he's experienced and he'll rebound and he can soak up minutes for you that you can rely on. I just feel like they have to play that guy right now with the other injuries they have. Gigi was not
I don't think there's anybody we missed.
Gigi was not in there. We should know. Gigi was not in the regular rotation that last preseason game when they played what looked to be kind of like a regular rotation until the fourth quarter, right?
Where it actually came together better than the other games.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Gigi's built the trust yet, with the coaching staff.
Right.
That they think he's dependable enough to play real minutes. But, yeah, so 10 or 11. 10 or 11 man rotation is your guess.
I think he's going to still play a big rotation.
You think he's going to go with 11?
I do.
That would be unsurprising, but it would also maybe slightly go against his notion that he's going to change things up that he sort of alluded to you.
Again, I'll go back to, I thought the answer was confusing because the initial response was, I think you have to change things up. And then as he kept talking, it sounded like, you don't want to deviate from what you're doing because that throws you off. It sounded like he was sort of struggling with it himself. So I don't know if it was clear to me what to pick up from what he was putting down.
And then as we also mentioned, we'll get into more Grizzlies big picture stuff over the course of the season later on in the pod, but There is the disabled player exception looming, which the Grizzlies will not be able to do until after the game. Is Sunday or Saturday that they play?
It's after 3 games, whenever.
So I think they play Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So I think they'll be able to sign somebody on Sunday.
The way this rule works, and we've been down this road before, I want to say, who's the guy that the guard they signed everyone wanted to keep forever? Is it Jalen Noel, or am I mixing him with someone else?
Jordan Goodwin?
No, more of a shooter guy. Anyway, in the recent year, 2 years ago, we got into this too. That went on with all the injuries, and they were doing this. But the way this works is, and I get the disabled player exception and hardship exception. I don't get the reality of the things confused in my head. I get which label goes to which confused. So what I'm going to explain to you is accurate, but I think this is hardship exception.
Who cares about the details?
Right. So the way it works is, if you have to have 4 players. If you have 4 players who miss 3 games, going backward, looking back, they have to have missed 3 games before it can kick in. So they have to have missed 3 games, which is why we have to wait till game 4 of the season. They have to have missed 3 games, and they have to be projected to miss at least 2 weeks going out, right? So now we know this. Zach Edey, Brandon Clark, Scottie Pippen, Ty Jerome. That's the magic 4. And depending on what happens with Vince Williams, it could be 5. We'll find out. But once you have 4 players who have missed 3 games and are projected to miss another 2 weeks, you can petition or file or whatever for a hardship exception, I think is what it is. And that's a 10-day contract. And you can sign a guy to that. And as long as you're still eligible, as long as the same parameters still apply, you can do up to 2 10-day contracts. You can't do more than 2 with the guy. And so what's going to happen is they are definitely going to be eligible for one of those starting in game 4. In theory, it could be 2 if we get bad news of Vince Williams, but maybe that won't be the case. But let's say it's 1. The interesting thing about it is they have two guys missing at center and 2 guys missing at point guard. You can make a case either way.
I think they'll go big.
I do too. I think they'll go big, but it may depend somewhat on who's available. I threw some names out there from the jump. I just sort of scanned. Once the Pippen thing happened, I started scanning the transaction sheet to see who had been cut. And among bigs is a guy, Charles Bassey, who I thought was the best free agent big in Summer League.
Who crushed the Grizzlies
Played
in Summer League.
on the Celtics Summer League team against the Grizzlies. I thought he was the best free agent big in Summer League. He was not two-way eligible. If he had been two-way eligible, they would have signed him, I think, instead of PJ Hall. But he's not eligible for a two-way. But he just got cut by the Atlanta Hawks. That's an obvious guy if he's not picked up. You know, I mentioned Precious Achiuwa late in the summer. He was out there. He was a surprise cut by the Miami Heat. He's not really a center, but he's a guy who's played rotation minutes as a big with the New York Knicks recently. People's ears are going to perk up because of the Memphis connection. That has nothing to do with me suggesting him. I don't think he's likely, but if you just look at who are some of the better players who are out there, there's a guy, Moses Brown, who's bounced around and always looks good, like 5 minutes at a time, but never sticks anywhere. Maybe there are some others out there.
I think
Alex Lynn is a veteran who just got cut. That's a guy who's a true center who has experience. If I had to guess, I would probably guess Bassey and Lynn as the guys who seem most likely. Yeah,
and I would agree. And I think, you know, again, the true center and point guard combo is the center of what, not to use the word center 5 different times, but it's everything. Yeah, exactly. That's the word I'm searching for. It's everything that Isolo sort of predicates an offense around. And so I would be really surprised if they used that on a guard, unless they got another one, right? In which case, maybe you just. I mean, if you do that, the only thing I would say is that, and you're right about the way Isolo wants to play, the way I think they prefer to use Jaren, sort of changes what would normally be the case for an average team. But if you step back from that, just look like a typical NBA team, you can get by without a true big, most people, better than you can without a lead guard. And so, like, if Morant or even Small, like, can't go in a game, like, you're really in a bad spot. Like, it's hard to, you could, like, play Small, right, without a center of the floor. It's hard to play without a guard. So, let's say Edey is not coming back until Thanksgiving.
Yep.
How many times are the Grizzlies going to be able to sign a guy to a 10-day.
Well, the same guy only to 2 in a row, and
Right.
then if you're still eligible for the exception, you can cut that guy and go sign somebody else, but you can't keep the same guy.
I asked that question to
Right.
get to the other branch of the tree.
I think I know where you're going.
Which is, in this tree metaphor, do you just make a wholesale roster change? Not wholesale, that's the wrong word. Do you make a full roster switch and just waive somebody and sign someone else?
Well, there's that possibility. There's the trade possibility. Trades at this point in the season are rare. It has happened. The Grizzlies traded for Mario Chalmers to address their backup point guard situation like 2 weeks into a season once upon a time. It's easier to just cut somebody and sign someone else. This roster is not set up to have someone. There's no the 15th guy on the team is like Cam Spencer. You just signed to a 4-year contract. Or it's Vince Williams you signed. These are all players that have money on the books for next season and guys that you are invested in their future of. There's not like there's no Lamar Stevens or Marvin Bagley on the back end of this roster right now who you would just cut without giving it a second thought. To me, the obvious, if you're going to wonder about anybody, the obvious guy to wonder about is Vince Williams because there's only 1 year left on the deal. It's not a lot of money to swallow. It's a third of the money you would swallow if you were cutting to John Conchar. He is in the middle of active injury concerns, so he can't help you right now, it doesn't seem. And the injury concerns, A, may make you worry about his future. And then B, you brought in Cedric Coward behind him. You brought in Javon Small. You brought in these other guys, Cam Spencer. I'm not saying that they would do this, but but I think if they sat down and decided, okay, we got to cut somebody to sign somebody else, I don't know how it wouldn't be him.
Who's out there as a guard that you could sign?
There's no one jumps out as obvious to me. The biggest name is Spencer Dinwiddie, who got cut, but I think people think he's sort of towards the end. This guy, Jared Butler, remember him? He was in the backcourt with Davion Mitchell at Baylor, I think.
He was the one that needed the medical exemption to play.
He has been like the best guy who just doesn't quite make a team for a few years now. He was a surprise cut by Phoenix. Like he's tended to be pretty good when he's gotten able to play, but just not quite hanging on. There's some veteran guys. Another Memphis connected guy, Campaign, is out there. DeLon Wright. I wouldn't be enthusiastic about cutting even Vince Williams with the heel problems. I wouldn't be enthusiastic about cutting to sign a guy like that. I don't see an obvious, Markelle Fultz.
What if you did it for a big?
I think if they bring in a big on the hardship exception and they really like what they see. That's the thing. You don't do it immediately. You bring in the guy on the hardship exception. You keep him on the hardship exception as long as you can. And then when you reach the point where you just have to sign him or cut him, then you have to make a decision.
If Bassey comes in and just cleans the glass for 2 weeks, and that's exactly what this team needs.
And now you've run out of eligibility with him. You have to sign him to a real contract or let him go. And he's like playing 20 minutes for you every night.
That's the scenario I think that there's much more that they're much more likely to get to than just to do it now. You know? And then in terms of trades,
how much value does Gigi Jackson have to the trade? I mean, you've sort of missed a window to get value for him at this point, and you would be settling low, which doesn't seem like the right thing to do. There's always Conchar, but
that or you have to attach assets to that, which you probably don't want to do.
You don't want to attach assets, and I don't know if they're interested in bringing additional money beyond this season back on a player that they're not interested in having beyond this season. So that narrows the scope of guys you might trade. Yeah.
And you got to think about the fact that
I'm contractually obligated at this point. It's in the bylaws of my Kafka. My Kafka.
I was going to get there, but you're going to get there.
No, I signed my life away to this, so I'm contractually obligated via my Kafka membership to note, maybe Utah, they could still cut a Kyle Anderson who's out there. What's he doing on that team? He would help you. Not a true big, but he's a guy who can help you at both the lead guard problem and the big problem.
What's his contract? What's his contract looking like? Could we have a way to match up and just make the trade happen?
John Conchar for Kyle Anderson does work as a trade.
Oh.
The problem there is that Conchar has another year left on his deal. Here, I was just campaigning for Jitty to play. Now I'm campaigning to trade him. I'm just saying utilize Jitty one way or the other. So John Conchar is under contract again next season for $6.2 million. Now, some sites will tell you Kyle Anderson is under contract next year for like $9 million. My understanding is that contract is non-guaranteed. And so Utah wouldn't take Jitty for Kyle Anderson unless you were going to throw in some second-round picks or something, right? Yeah. But the fact that that money is non-guaranteed, he could be a buyout there. That wouldn't surprise me.
Utah might have interest in if you're gonna make a trade, you got to think about a team that might be interested in taking like Jitty or Gigi, right? Like,
I think those. If you're looking to waive, Vince Williams is the obvious guy. I say that with sadness. It's true. If you're looking to trade, and I don't know that they are, probably not, but I think Gigi and Jitty are the most obvious guys there. Yeah.
Dennis Schroeder gets traded like 3 times a season. He plays point guard.
Right.
The contract's a little too big there.
Those dreams haven't died yet in Sacramento.
Yeah. No, they haven't. They have not quite yet. And but they did just sign Russell Westbrook. So
hey, Grizzlies missed their chance. They could have had Westbrook in here.
They could have had Russell Westbrook, man. Is there anything else
that is a joke.
Are we missing? Yes. Are we missing anything on this tree of injury shakedown here?
I don't think so. I mean, we're about to get into some games and we'll have some clarity, but I think we've covered that territory for now.
All right, this is a good time. Let's take a break for a message from our sponsor.
Want to make a big impact without getting lost in a big system? Join Youth Villages to be a force for families while becoming part of one. Help make positive changes on a national scale, one community at a time. It takes a family to transform lives. Start with yours. Apply now at youthvillages.org/careers.
As we look at the season ahead for the Memphis Grizzlies, obviously it's a big one for Ja and Jaren, and you just wrote about this, so let's just take a minute to get into it. One thing that I find interesting is sort of the tone that the franchise has taken around those two, even dating back to media day of like, these are still our franchise pillars and we're trying to find a way towards higher end outcomes.
Right.
Which is what Zach Kleiman said. How is there anything that this team can show you? And it may not be from a record standpoint. Like what do the Grizzlies have to do this season to still feel like the direction with Ja and Jaren is the right direction to go? I
think it's tricky because it's sort of like, with Golden State, people used to talk about like, the 2 timelines or whatever. This is sort of like that, but it's happening like 2 tracks going side by side. And one track is Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. How available do you think they will be? That's more of a Ja question at this point. And B, not only how good can they be this season, but more importantly, how good do you believe they will be in the next 2, 3, 4 years going out, right? Because everyone knows if you have another 55 win team, advance in the playoffs team around John Jaren, it's probably not this season, right? And so if you're trying to still achieve that with those 2 guys, one question is, how long can they be players who can be at the forefront of that? They're only 26, but they are 26. That's not like super young anymore. It should be like right in your prime. So there's that question. That's one track. The other track is the supporting cast. So can this supporting cast catch up with Ja and Jaren? I wish people could see my hands. Can this supporting cast, either the one you're growing or the one you assemble later on with players not yet here, can that catch up with Ja and Jaren and get side by side on the track before the John Jaren thing just goes off the track?
Oh, and by the way, some of these pieces are not yet on the track.
This is what I'm saying.
And that is what, it's not just Cedric Coward and Scotty.
It's that pick likely coming from Phoenix.
Exactly.
It is other picks in the future. It's what you might be able to get via trade with that guess.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts to that. And so I think while it's important that Ja and Jaren both play and play a lot of games together this year, to see what you have there, it's also important to see all these other pieces, as you sort of noted, catch up to them if you want to still feel good about the direction of the team. The other part of this is they did just give Jaren a big extension this summer. So there's several years onward that they are still committed to Jaren. They're also the same with Ja.
I think that Jaren extension was a good thing to do regardless of what ultimate direction you choose. Because A, you lock up Jaren, but B, if you decide that, let's say next summer or whenever, okay, this is not going to work, we got to go wholesale in a different direction, I think Jaren Jackson would be very, very easy to deal for good value on that contract.
And then there's Ja,
that's a trickier question.
Which is a much trickier question. And I think it's tricky for a number of reasons. One is just you observe his this was always going to be a question with Ja, was can he hold up physically with a violent style of basketball that he plays?
Right.
And that remains a question. I think we still don't have a true answer to that question. I heard you on the radio this morning talking about his percentage of shots at the rim going down every season. And that's certainly notable. But the other part of this is like, he's now, obviously no extensions happened for Ja this to this point, but that's not going away. Like, that's still going to be another option next offseason.
Yep.
The clock is now ticking on that. And I wonder what this season is going to mean towards, his long-term sort of future.
It's a big question hanging over everything. But my sort of initial response to it, and I wrote a little bit of this in the season preview column I wrote, is let's be aware of that and set it off somewhere and then watch Ja Morant play basketball.
Yeah.
I personally, as a basketball fan, I want to watch Ja Morant play basketball. I hope to watch him be awesome at playing basketball. And I hope to take great joy as a basketball fan in watching this incredible talent. His talent is not just about athleticism. To watch this incredible talent be awesome at playing basketball. Whatever else is going to happen in the future, whatever else is happening around the team, I want to savor this dude being awesome at basketball, and I hope it happens more frequently this season.
Yes. That's not going to change the situation.
No.
Which is that.
But I'm saying,
eventually
I'm saying when you're sitting there in the game, you don't have to say, man, this is awesome, but what's going to happen in 3 months? Just let it be awesome.
That's right. That is correct. Ja has the opportunity to make it super easy, by the way, if he's just totally awesome and everybody sits back and watches Ja be totally awesome. I think I still, let me be super clear about this.
We all want the y'all forgot about me tour.
100%.
All of us.
Everyone.
Yes.
And I still think that Ja's an all-NBA player.
I agree.
Can be on the cusp of that top 5 MVP voting at his best. I still believe that. And I believe that he can still be that 3 years from now when the deal runs out. And
I think that's possible.
But that is more of a question than it is right now. And so as long as he's able to show that, or at least inject some confidence in that, then I do think this doesn't have to be something that we talk about every 3 months or worry about all the time. So, but you're right. It starts with just watching Ja play basketball, right? And him staying on the court and playing.
There's been such a focus on the shooting thing about, he needs to become a better shooter to help his game age well. And I think that's 100% valid observation. But the thing that gets underrated, there's the athleticism, which is there, the shooting that hasn't come, the durability in between. All of these are very important data points and sort of thinking about Ja Morant now and in the future. The thing that I think still gets underrated about him and lost in that discussion about how his game could age.
Can I guess?
I think but go ahead and say it.
I think, is his ability to control a game is unbelievable.
His vision, his creativity, his mental processing, his ability to set players up, manipulate the floor, that point guard presence, that true point guard presence that not everybody has. And that's why, early in his career, one of the guys I compared him to was Chris Paul. And a lot of people are like, Chris Paul, he's not there. He does have some of that to him. And that's a guy who's 40 years old playing. And he's become a good shooter, but he was never Steph Curry as a shooter, and he's 5'10" and whatever. I think Morant's ability, and I would like to see him lean into more of the pure point guard playmaker stuff a little bit.
Let's not forget, last season wasn't the best, the shining, it was clear that Ja wasn't exactly thrilled with the style of offense that they were running, but he was really effective in it, especially early in the season. And he was having his best season as a passer. I remember writing a story last year that really took off and fans sort of gravitated to, about how Ja was basically accumulating all these assists with fewer passes than any of the other point guards that pass the ball over the court. It's because he knows where to attack. He understands, what the defense is going to do. And his ability to me, that is peak Ja, not when he's jumping over somebody and dunking and he created this awesome highlight in a game. The best version of Ja is where he's out there for a 7-minute stretch and he has his hands on everything good that just happened in the game over that 7-minute stretch. And he doesn't have to be jumping over people to do that.
My favorite Morant game last season, maybe one of my favorite ever, was the home game against Milwaukee. And I think he had like 24 and 14, 8 rebounds, whatever. But the 14 assists, 9 of them were for alley-oop dunks or layups. Like he was just bing, 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 the ball throwing around, creating easy shots for other people. And like, the reason I'm always a little bit more reticent than some outside of Memphis. Like I was on the top podcast of Nate Duncan and we sort of had a little disagreement about this. The reason I'm reticent to sort of try to turn the page on Ja Morant as like, an all NBA level player is because I don't think it's all about his athleticism. That's the very thing we're talking about.
I don't think so either. These conversations are going to continue, whether you like them or not. It's already happening last year. And as we've said on the podcast, there were clearly, I think, some folks misguided in Memphis's feelings towards Morant at this stage. But, there's several more years down the line of Ja under contract for the Grizzlies, or a couple, I should say. More years beyond this one of Ja Morant under contract for the Grizzlies. So eventually those conversations are going to happen. And I feel like we can't do a season preview without talking about the most important player and the future with the team. So, but yeah, I mostly agree with everything you said. Anything to add on Jaren there?
The Jaren thing, Jaren is so good in so many different ways, but it's been this interesting thing with him. This sort of, my metaphor has been like the stereo, adjust the levels. You can't just take them all and push them all to the top. It doesn't really work that way. You got to, because there's some give and take between the offensive usage and the defensive effort and all of this kind of stuff. With Jaren, I wonder about the team I think he can elevate. He makes things, he greases the wheels on offense and he elevates on defense. But I do think the situations around him is a little uncertain to me for him. I think he is better defensively playing with the big center, which he's not really going to have. So I'll be interested to see how well the Landale thing works out because I think they need it to work defensively. Then on offense, the offensive system last year worked for him.
Yeah. No, this is actually one of the something I wanted to talk about that I think is really interesting. And it's something I've asked about behind the scenes a little bit. And that is like how Jaren is going to be used now in Isola's system. And we've seen him do some screening and that sort of thing. And I expect that will continue.
We saw him get 3 offensive fouls in that last preseason game screening.
I expect. Which
may be one of the reasons that Taylor Jenkins went away from using him as a screener.
Right. I expect that will continue. They're not going to just quit on that.
Right.
They would like to have a 2-man game between Ja and Jaren. And I
didn't get to work on that in preseason.
I think that's worthy of exploring.
I agree.
But like, if we've learned anything about Isolo, it's like he is of the analytical mind.
Yeah.
And when we talk about good shot, like they talk about this a lot in college basketball. And I'm obviously an Alabama grad that watches a lot of Alabama. Nate Oates, who's, one of the big time up and coming coaches in college, his whole thing is shooting at the rim and shooting from beyond the 3-point line. It's like free throws, layups, and threes are the best shots you can get in the game. And Jaren's game is
floaters.
You talked about Ja's percentage of shots at the rim going down you know what? Jaren's percentage from mid-range has gone up every single season of his career.
He's become the floater king among bigs.
And I wondered how that was going to fit with Isolo's ideology about basketball, which is more analytical. And even you've heard Ty Jerome come out and said the best shots are all the way at the rim, free throws, and 3-pointers. And I think that there's a middle ground there. And there's the way it was sort of explained to me was, and we talk about like shot quality, right? Shot quality is measured based on the type of shot you're taking, the nearest defender, all of those factors. Right. But also you have to factor in who's shooting the shots. Yeah. And to some degree, essentially the way it was put to me is like efficiency is efficiency. Right. And it's about getting good shots for that individual player, not only about getting good shots. And this is something that I think I'm going to write about a little bit, and it'll be out on Wednesday, so the day of the game. And Obviously, Ty Jerome's hurt now, but they're not. I don't think the goal is to get away from mid-range floaters for Jaren and Ty Jerome. I was
going to say that's another floater team. Is Ty Jerome.
Maybe that's part of this adaptation and this whole solution thing that Islo keeps talking about. Is I need to be a problem solver. Well, I have to identify the strengths of our team and sort of build around it. Well, guess what? I think that those two guys in particular are really good at that. So although they're going to try this Jaren Ja two-man game and let him be a screen or whatever, I think we're still going to see a lot of Jaren Jackson ISO in the mid-range.
Yeah, I agree.
Get to the floater, and that is not going to change about the offensive system.
I would also, you talk about the rim and three. Three's part of that too. And I've never been someone who wants all the shots to be 3-pointers. I'm a little old school in that vein. But I have always been a proponent through good times and bad, and there's been the bad. I'm a proponent of Jaren Jackson Jr. taking threes.
Me too.
Because he's good at it for his position. I know it fluctuates, but he's good at it for his position. And to me, it's easy shots for him to get that don't put a lot of strain on him. It's shots that open up stuff for the rest of the offense. And so, I want him taking 6 threes a game or whatever. I don't want him taking 12.
Right. And when you talk about shot quality, a lot of those are going to be high quality shots because of the pressure he can put on the rim or getting downhill to that floater.
Right.
There's going to be very few, post defenders who are going to be willing or talented enough to push all the way up on Jaren on the perimeter. So those are actually going to grade out mostly as high quality shots. So I'm with you on Jaren taking the threes. I think that opens a door to talk just about threes in general. One thing I found interesting.
Grizzlies preseason, I actually just pulled this up. They were second. Let me hit that button again. They were second in 3-point attempts, only behind the Boston Celtics, who just jacked
233, I believe, attempts in the preseason.
Yeah, I've got it in the per game because the number of games played was unequal. So Boston was at 47 a game, Grizzlies at 46.6. Grizzlies made the most because they shot a little bit better than Boston. They ended up shooting 37% after a slow start. You asked Islo this after the first preseason game because that game they took something 60% of their
I asked some more about
shots.
this too.
Yeah,
I got some more. I got some things to add on this because I found that interesting too. They shot a ton of threes in the preseason. It's part of the reason why, and you've noted this on the podcast before, it was such a rough watch because they were launching a ton of threes.
Looks good when they go in.
Until the last game against Miami, I think they were at 33% or something, not very good. Yeah. And so it creates difficult basketball to watch. But what I found interesting as I looked at it was Islo's offenses in Paris, which were historically good offenses, over a 57 game stretch, were shooting in the 20s in terms of 3-pointers per game. Then you go to the Grizzlies last season, they're in the mid 30s in terms of 3-point attempts per game. Now Islo's the head coach of the Grizzlies, and it's continued to go that direction of more threes, up to 46 3-point attempts per game in the preseason. I don't think that was intentional. I think they would rather that change. I think they
didn't have the two players who pressured the rim most, and John Morant and Zach Edey. But
they didn't, which was certainly a part of it. And that was a point that Islo made, was that'll change when we have guys that can get to the basket.
One of those guys you still don't have in Zach Edey.
But at the same time, again, they are numbers oriented. They are they are analytical minds that are running this ship. And so they don't have any problems, I don't think, with good 3-point attempts. But I do feel as if, they're going to try to get that number down, and they should be able to relatively easily once Ja Morant's back on the court. I just found it interesting. In terms of shot diet, I would expect fewer threes from the Grizzlies as we get to the regular season.
A guy, I'm not as certain about that, we'll find out. But one player in particular I would point to and say fewer threes is Cedric Howard. And not just because he shot poorly in the preseason. He was 3, this is scary stuff. He was 3 of 26 from 3 in the preseason. That's 12%. He's going to shoot better than that. But what was he from the free throw line and 2-point range? From the free throw line, let's see. Free throw line, he was 19 of 22, which is 86%.
That's pretty good. Good indicator.
Good indicator. He was good. He was a high 80s shooter in college from free throw line. The 3 from 26 was so bad that it sort of killed his whole, field goal percentage. He was 58% on 2s in the preseason. He was 11 of 19 on 2-point shots. I want to see those flip. I want him still to shoot threes. He needs to get better. I don't want him taking more threes than twos. And I know as a secondary player, he's spacing around better players. You end up getting a lot of those shots. To me, when he just sort of played a little bit more free and used his athleticism to get in the lane, I was really impressed by that. And I think that shot balance needs to tip back towards twos for him.
Can we get lineup data? Are you at position here to get lineup? I'm interested because
I'm on the NBA site, not cleaning the glass, so it's a little bit harder to search that.
I'll be interested to see how Cedric Howard plays when Ja Morant's on the court.
Oh, I agree.
Because I don't think that if I'm remembering correctly, I'm almost certain he played very few minutes with point guards, and that in general, which makes it a lot more difficult to get
He
shots.
is someone who can run with Ja and can also get up and catch lobs. We haven't seen it, but I believe it will happen over time. He will be another lob threat for Ja. And I think Ja and that athleticism can get him touches beyond just spot up threes.
Also, when you think about it too, like, if you're just making assumptions about the way that the Grizzlies would be structured through training camp, you would expect that he would be playing a lot with Ty Jerome, like in those settings.
Right.
And then Ty Jerome didn't play all that much during the preseason and got hurt in the last game. And so, yeah, I think Cedric Howard, obviously it wasn't like some glowing preseason that should make you super excited, but it's so early there. You just can't.
I think it's important for a player like that when you watch to look more for potential than results. Look at what he's capable of. And I've been very be patient with him, and I still want to reiterate that. But I was very encouraged by what I saw, because the two biggest problems he had in preseason were he just missed every three he took. Again, he's not going to shoot 12% from three as an NBA player. The shooting fundamentals are too good. Whether he'll be a 32% shooter or a 38% shooter, that matters, and that's to be determined. He's not going to be a 12% shooter. And then the team defense was bad when he was on the floor. But guess what? The team defense was bad no matter who was on the floor in the preseason. I don't know. I don't expect him to be a good defender because he's a rookie, and rookies just aren't good defenders generally. But his physical makeup, the functionality of his athleticism, and the way in his maturity, that tells me that he will be a good defender eventually. And I think pretty quickly. It may not be like Jalen Wells. It may not be like the first month of his rookie season, but I think he's going to get there. And I think his ability to do stuff offensively inside the arc is something that I think is really going to come along, would be my guess.
Okay, last couple things. We knew this would be a little bit longer since it's the full season preview, but do you have a biggest concern, especially with the starting with the way that the season is going to start out? Well, we have a list of things here in front of us. I don't think either of us had very much time to dig into these potential things. One of the things, biggest concern: Javon Small, Cam Spencer, or Jock. Who do you think? Let's rank those in order of who you think is going to be most impactful.
I think the Jock and the Javon Small things are too important for the Grizzlies right now. I hope the Landale can just soak up minutes and rebound and set screens and maybe make some threes like he did in the preseason. But if he can't give them 20 to 25 minimum good minutes a night, I think that's a big problem with Zach Edey out. And Javon Small is now about Cedric Howard getting thrown to the deep end, man. Javon Small's been just getting thrown into the ocean. And so
same way Jalen Wells did last year. Sometimes it works out.
Yes, but it's easy to narrow your game and hide a little bit. I mean, he was asked to go guard that guy and make open shots. Javon Small is going to be asked to do a whole lot more. And so I think my bigger overarching concerns for the Grizzlies can connect back to these two players. It is the team defense, period. I worry about them being just terrible defensively coming out of the gate as a carryover from the preseason. And then I worry, are they going to be able to hold up when Ja Morant's not on the floor?
I'm going to make a PSA.
Okay.
We're not going to do team defense numbers, people,
after 2 games or whatever.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
And we're especially not doing that based on points given up per game. It's too basic.
Well,
the Grizzlies are going to play at a pace where there's going to be
But
this is hyperbole.
We don't do that
billion
anyway.
Possessions a game.
Yeah, we don't.
So please do not share that the Grizzlies are giving up 130, whatever. Let's be a little bit more advanced than that.
Yeah.
Okay. that was just a quick PSA. Most interesting step-up candidate, Wells, KCP, or Santi? I have a bold take on this. I'll go first. We asked the question, who's going to be the third leading scorer on this team over and over and over again, and I think I've gone to Santi.
You're changing it to Jalen Wells.
Yeah, I'm changing it to Jalen Wells.
He's
looked pretty dang good.
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to me if we look up and he's averaging like 16 points a game. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying I won't be shocked if that's happening.
I like that there's been a lot more to his game than just the 3-and-D already. Like he's already been pretty good at getting to the line, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Like I think there were at least 2 of the preseason games. I don't remember against Miami, but in at least 2 of the preseason games, he got to the line at 4 times, which is a lot, especially at his position. Playing alongside Ja, second year in. I think maybe we underrated what the ceiling was going to be on Jalen Wells.
I think maybe I did.
I think
we'll see. We'll see regular season basketball, but I'm both willing and I will be happy to say that I did so.
Yeah. I have to go Jalen Wells there. So I think KCP's just solid and he's going to be solid. And I think Santi's going to be what he was last year.
Well, this is my answer to this is going to be Santi, because the question was like, who, I don't know, how did we phrase it? It was most interesting, right? Necessarily the best, most interesting. And the fact that you went with Wells and I had the same thought issue on Wells, to me sort of almost makes Santi more interesting because he's the one they just gave $18 million to. He's the one who's a front court guy with 2 of their 4 best front court players now out to injury. There's all kinds of things that are open up. Like who's going to be the third leading scorer we've talked about? That should be Santi. Who's going to be the third best player? That sort of should be Santi. We talked about like 3.
We can't dismiss Zach Edey.
And I mean in terms of who's going to be on the floor to start the season. Okay. Who's available right now. 3 months ago, I was looking at the bench and saying, you got 4 guys here. If things break right, could be a 6th man of the year candidate. Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen, Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark. Guess what? 3 of those guys are gone. So like Santi, go win 6th man of the year because they're not going to start you because they want to start big. Go do it. Go average 17 points a game off the bench and help this team stay afloat and go get that hardware is what I would say.
It would be very fitting. I'll put it this way.
The opportunity is there.
We've literally waited on the Santi breakout thing. We've said it actually each of the last 2 years. Yeah. This is the Santi breakout season. It's unbelievable he's going into year 5, by the way. But we've said that this is the Santi breakout year because if you remember, first year of Santi was rough. The second year, it was like, oh, wait, all of a sudden you're in the starting lineup, buddy, because Jaren's hurt. And then he surprised and played well. The third year, it was like, well, maybe Santi's due for a breakout. It was better, but it wasn't like the full breakout that people thought. And then last year he comes out and he opens the season with an awesome performance in a win against Utah and hits big shots down the stretch. And everybody says, this is the year for the Santi breakout. And now this year, the attention has shifted maybe a little bit more towards Jalen Wells and the rest of this team and Cedric Coward. And watch, this will be the year that it finally happens for Santi.
Again, he's not going to start as long as Landale and Jaren are healthy because I don't think that's the way they want to set up. But the opportunity, not only is the opportunity there for him to get lots of minutes and lots of touches and lots of shots, the need is there for him to do that. So it's all there. Like, go get it,
Do you want to leave us with a spicy take? I don't really have one.
No, I didn't really have time to formulate some spicy takes. And if I tried hard to be spicy, it would be stuff I don't want to say yet before the season's even started, right? Let's let the wings marinate a little bit more before we start breaking out the suicide and the blazing hot. We'll stay honey gold for now.
Yeah, we'll just keep it tame. We'll keep it tame. All right, well, that is going to do it for us this week. Go read our season preview stuff. Mine may not be out yet. If it's Wednesday morning, then my season preview will be out. Chris's stuff is out. Jeff Calkins wrote a column about the lease.
It will be up by the time people listen.
Yeah, that is also up. Which we didn't get into. We probably owe people another lease podcast here soon.
We got a whole season.
We got a lot.
I don't think that's going to get done in the next 2 hours, so I think we're fine.
I hope so.
Right.
I would be very unprepared if it did get done in the next 2 hours. So hopefully that is not the case. But all right, we will be back next week breaking down the start of the Grizzlies season. For Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.